In the span of a few milliseconds, a user clicks a dead link, a server fails to resolve the address, and the connection drops. The user's momentum, their specific intent to buy, read, or download, hits an immediate void. In the strict protocols of the early internet, this event is classified as an HTTP 404 status code. An HTTP 404 status code is a standard response indicating that the client was able to communicate with a given server, but the server could not find what was requested. It is a literal dead end. But for modern, multi-billion-dollar digital ecosystems, that kind of passive surrender is mathematically unacceptable. Every dropped session represents a strictly quantifiable loss in customer acquisition cost. Look at the sheer physical footprint of corporations like Adobe. These entities spend tens of millions of dollars engineering traffic funnels. They cannot afford to let a single click evaporate into nothing. At this scale, the 404 page acts as an aggressive, highly optimized traffic salvage node, engineered to catch and reroute every lost session. To understand how this salvage operation works, we scraped the raw architectural text from the fallback states of major domains, specifically Adobe, Salesforce, and Hootsuite. What emerges from this data is an architectural philosophy we can call the maximalist navigation net. The logic is brutal but effective. When user intent is completely unknown, the interface must deploy every available option simultaneously. Take a look at the raw payload from the Salesforce 404 page. It is an overwhelming wall of categories, submenus, and links, deployed the instant the server registers a missing URL. These chaotic fallback screens are highly intentional. Stripped of the usual marketing polish and smooth user journeys, they function as perfect, unfiltered maps of a corporation's internal hierarchy. Because an error page has to account for every possible lost user, it presents the most honest reflection of a company's underlying information architecture. This architectural behavior extends well beyond the private sector. If we look at the United States Small Business Administration, we see the baseline for how these errors are handled. The text from the SBA scrape reads, "Just like a business on the moon, the page you're looking for doesn't exist." It is a brief, somewhat playful apology, followed by a generic search bar. Now compare that to the Adobe scrape. The apology takes up exactly one line, and in the very next breath, the page aggressively pitches its top-tier products, Acrobat, Photoshop, and Adobe Express. We can see this modeled in an interaction design pattern known as the micropivot. In the document object model, the structural HTML framework of the web page, the error acknowledgement is instantly overwritten by high-priority conversion vectors. The document object model, or DOM, is a programming interface for web documents that represents the page so that programs can change the document structure, style, and content. The apology text is structurally secondary. The vast majority of the page's actual payload is dedicated entirely to these rerouting modules, minimizing the error state to a tiny sliver at the top of the screen. Passive error reporting simply does not align with active conversion metrics. Every pixel must pull its weight to recapture the user's click. Through the micropivot, user frustration is instantly commodified into top-of-funnel product awareness. To understand the scale of these conversion nets, we have to look at the sprawling ecosystem-level complexity of a company like Salesforce. The raw text from their 404 scrape isolates massive category blocks: sales, service, marketing, commerce, analytics, and Slack. This animated graph illustrates a taxonomic extraction. By parsing the unstructured text into a hierarchical classification, we can map this data to see how the company structures itself. The first level of the resulting taxonomy is explicitly divided by core product suites. Then, the architecture redundantly cross-indexes those exact same products by specific industry verticals. This is intentional redundancy, engineered directly into the fallback state. It creates an overlapping matrix designed to catch any possible permutation of user intent. The resulting structure is a corporate ontology. An ontology is a formal naming scheme that defines the types, properties, and interrelationships of the entities within a specific domain.
In short, it is the mathematical logic dictating how a business organizes its own universe of products. But in a forced top-down hierarchy, what singular node commands the highest, most valuable position on the graph? There is a glaring anomaly in the Salesforce dataset. The terms agent force and AI entirely bypass their legacy products, injecting themselves at the absolute peak of the fallback hierarchy. When user intent is unknown, an enterprise system defaults to displaying its most urgent, highly funded go-to-market priorities over the historical mainstays that actually built the company. To verify if this AI prioritization is an industry-wide architectural standard, we introduced IBM's digital footprint into the dataset. The scrape of the IBM 404 page reveals the exact same pattern. The dominant top-tier placements are reserved explicitly for AI agents and cloud. By charting the side-by-side node trees of IBM and Salesforce, we see their AI initiatives towering over the legacy product nodes below them. Because these fallback pages are generated dynamically by the site's content management system, they reflect real-time technological shifts rather than outdated static sitemaps. A content management system, or CMS, is the software application used to create and manage digital content on the fly. A live Enterprise 404 page functions as a real-time ledger of go-to-market priorities, capturing shifts in R&D focus months before they appear in retrospective financial reporting. Not all corporations rely on static, hard-coded mega-menus to capture lost users. Some are shifting toward highly fluid, dynamic content strategies. The datasets from Hootsuite and Nielsen lack the massive structural product lists found in the Adobe and Salesforce errors. This flowchart illustrates the back-end process, where their pages are populated by modules like recent posts, most used categories, and featured data. When a user tries to access a page, they send a GET request, the protocol a browser uses to ask a server for a specific web page. When that fails, these sites use secondary CMS queries to immediately populate the error surface area with high-performing, real-time content. This completely bypasses the static corporate architecture. It relies entirely on algorithmic ranking to serve links, like Nielsen's top 10 rankings, based on immediate engagement metrics. This strategy of algorithmic injection requires significantly more computational overhead than a static maximalist net, but it results in a much lighter payload delivered to the user's browser. It transforms a technical dead end from a static corporate directory into a highly active, personalized content recommendation engine. To measure the true efficiency of these strategies, we must look at the ultimate minimalist outlier in the dataset, the World Economic Forum. The WEF 404 scrape is incredibly brief. It reads, "Page not found. Visit our homepage." There is an absolute absence of a navigation net or dynamic injection. This simulated heat map directly contrasts the minimalist reset philosophy with the maximalist trap deployed by Salesforce and Adobe. This raises a question of optimal UI surface area. Does absolute simplicity or an absolute overwhelming amount of choice yield a higher retention probability? At the enterprise level, a minimalist reset mathematically fails. It cannot capture highly fragmented user intent. Only the maximalist approach casts a net wide enough to catch the varied, unpredictable reasons a user arrived at that dead end in the first place. If we zoom out and look at the macro landscape of all these scraped enterprise pages combined, a clear behavioral pattern emerges. At the highest levels of the digital economy, information architecture abhors a vacuum. A broken link represents a critical failure in the acquisition funnel. The automatic UI response is to instantly deploy a hyperdense, prioritized, ontological map of the entire business to fill that void. The singular goal is to arrest the user's momentum and physically capture their attention before the browser tab is closed. The 404 page is a diagnostic mirror, reflecting a company's internal data structure, its specific anxieties about lost traffic, and its most urgent strategic priorities.